Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Spirit of Healing Academy. I am Reverend Michelle Scrimgeour-Brown, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all here this week. As we do each week, our intention with these gatherings is to stimulate thought, create connection, and expand consciousness, because we are an assembly of people who will teach each other to find the miracle of joyful living from life circumstance to accomplish that which seems impossible. I always throw it over at this point to see if anybody has any announcements that they'd like to share, anything upcoming or ongoing in their communities. Please feel free to take it away if you have something to share.
Just looking forward to continuing to serve the people of Durham region who need chiropractic, acupuncture, energy work. Back at Wake and Life Chiropractic, we're back to like full service, so
amazing.
It's all good, actually. We always work full service. I'm inviting
poking.
Everybody back.
You're back to your snap, crackle, poking.
Yes, and I enjoy doing it. I feel I'm called to help a lot of people. So
yes, of course, yes, and you're very good at what you do.
Thank you, Michelle.
I don't have anything to share. So if everybody's good, because I saw Patty, you shook your head no, what I'm going to do is hit the screen sharing button. And oh, you know what I have to do first? Thanks for the reminder, self, is to mute you guys so that we can all speak the opening intention together. And then when we're ready to discuss, you can bring yourself back into conversation by unmuting you. Okay, so may I come to understand that blessings are everywhere, that my attitude will affect outcomes, and that challenges are often gifts in disguise. May I come to trust that most things can get better with time, that my instincts and gut feelings have value, and that a positive attitude makes things go smoother. May I come to see that I have many skills and talents I can use, that I am a positive influence on many people, and that there are those around me who wish me well. May I come to value that today is a blessing to be enjoyed, that each person is unique and important, and that each moment of my life has meaning. Well, now we've done our opening intention, which is great, but I've been fiddling with a little bit. I was like, I don't know how to stop the share. I kind of lost all my buttons. Technology is wonderful, and I am just advancing all of my knowledge. So last week, we started our discussion by discussing a list called Signs You Are Becoming Your Authentic Self. And I told you last week that I wasn't going to share the list because you guys like to skip ahead. And I wanted to be able to really sink into each point. And so I'm going to do the same thing this week because there are 3 things left on this list. But before we begin with today's, I'm just going to quickly recap the previous 2, okay? So the first sign that you are becoming your authentic self says you've started setting boundaries. And we spent a lot of time talking about that one last week. That was a really meaty discussion. And then the second point is you've been observing your patterns and becoming aware of how you respond, which was another great topic. And now here's number 3. And I really feel like this is Mike's wheelhouse. No pressure, Mike. You understand that there are multiple realities and you're more at peace with being misunderstood. That's a good one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Your wheelhouse, Mike.
Yeah, Mike, I'm waiting because, yeah, you know all this stuff.
It's one thing to know it, like in theory, but to, be able to experience it or, bring it like into your everyday reality. Like basically what I feel like is based on my frequency, I'm attracting my reality. And apparently we're like flickering in and out of realities like all the time. So it's like maybe I hear like billions of times a second we could be like flickering in and out of realities, but often it's ending up it looks really smooth. And we are really recreating the same reality that we expect over and over because we expect it. it's very hard to make this quantum leap, but it does happen occasionally. And I've had some experiences where, you know, you flicker out of the, you know, in and out of reality. So it's, yeah, it's an interesting topic for sure, Michelle.
For sure, for sure. And you know, when I read this, I thought, oh, I kind of get this. Um, and the reason I feel like I kind of get it is because of the work that we have done as a group in the study of spiritual law. So it says you understand that there are multiple realities and that you're more at peace with being misunderstood. So when I first read this, I was thinking about all the times we've talked about how people will receive you as they are. So Matt Kahn says it doesn't matter how much you love someone, they can only receive to the level at which they love themselves.
Ooh.
And to me, when I'm reading this, that there are multiple realities and you're more at peace with being misunderstood, for me, what that's saying is, I know what I think I'm doing, and how someone else receives me is their reality. Does that make sense? Do you get that? Nancy, does that make sense for you?
Yeah, yeah, because it's I've just had the awareness. This will make you guys crack up. Gee, the way my ego sees the world isn't the way everybody else's ego and reality sees the world. And my ego's been going around thinking, well, they took what I said this way. I could see a look on their face, and they reacted this way. And oh my God, you know, and they're judging me. And why did I say this? And then I'll talk to Phil, and I'll go, why do you think they thought the way you think? Everybody thinks differently. And it's it's a reality and everything. And just in the 2 days I was in the hospital, I had this weird experience with reality, as a matter of fact, which was when I first was there and I had the operation, I came out and everything, and I was in the, you know, recovery room, and then I was in the next ward that I was moved to and everything. And they were keeping a close eye on watch on me. I felt really safe and everything. And I was kind of in the living very much in the moment. I thought I would be obsessed with being home with my guy, but I was living in the moment. And then the next day I had this thing of, I just couldn't wait to go home. And I suddenly felt incredibly uncomfortable in the hospital. So then I'm longing to come home. Then I come home and I'm uncomfortable at home. And I was so shocked. And I went, why am I uncomfortable at home? We've lived here 23 years. I couldn't wait to get home. And I was experiencing myself like I've never experienced myself in my whole life. Yes, the 2 days, 3 days actually, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I was kind of different people in a way I've never been before. It was a very spacey, and at that point I hadn't been given the drugs to knock me out for surgery beforehand, even when I was having a spacey feeling. And I just have to say, like, as soon as this thing quote came up this morning, I went and what Mike said, I went, yeah, the last 3 days I experienced some really different, far out, to use a really old expression, you know, experiences and reality. And I had this image of, like, I'm not just Nancy who's here. There's another Nancy, because Phil and I talked about a stage of our life when he was, you know, anyway, it doesn't matter, went on a macrobiotic journey for a health reason.
The Nancy that you are for me is the Nancy that I see as my friend.
Yeah.
Which is not the Nancy that you see.
Yeah, like it's like Mike said, we can be all these different realities, like all these different things. And it was just it was like, it really tied into what, you know, this is and what Mike was saying. It just fascinating. I've just touched in it.
It really is. And I love that part at the end of this sign that says, you're more at peace with being misunderstood.
Yeah. Yeah. For so many years, I was always uncomfortable that people didn't understand me. I mean,
Right.
and the whole thing about different realities, and you were saying how we often think, well, we assume people are feeling or responding a certain way or thinking a certain thing when that may not be what they're thinking when you're talking to them. So I used to apologize for being a weirdo years ago, and I don't worry about it anymore because I like my weirdness. I like whatever, and it's amazing how much how many people are very accepting of it. They're not judging me or criticizing me, more so now than, but I always assumed that was going to be the response.
Right. And I wonder if people are less judgmental of and critical of you now, or if they're still the same amount, but because you aren't assuming it, you just aren't aware of it.
Well, that's quite true. And to be honest,
that multiple reality thing, right?
Yes. And I honestly, at this point in my life, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't have the response to whatever the response is, or however they feel, whether they, like it or not, like me or not. I don't really care because I'm me. So,
right. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And if it doesn't make you happy, then that's on you.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll, and maybe I can't speak for you, Patty, because of course you're having your own life and your own experiences, but I know for me that I think I move in and out of that state.
Mm-hmm.
That sometimes I feel really impervious to people's responses and reactions, and other times I'm really raw and vulnerable, and it just cuts me.
Yes, that's true. And I think that's, we all go through those changes,
right?
The moon, whatever it is, our emotions change and we respond differently to different things. So
I always think that when I'm feeling really triggered by someone else's opinion of me, I always go back to the law of reflection, that if I am triggered by it, there's something in what I'm perceiving they're saying, because what I'm perceiving is probably not what they're saying. There's something in what I'm perceiving they're saying that is true about me that I don't like or I'm not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And the trigger is making me aware of my next level of healing, the next thing that I need to make peace with, the next behavior or thought that I need to bless and release,
Yeah, I agree. I'm finding that too. Wasn't something I used to be aware of, but now I am.
Right. I was not aware of it always too. And then when I first banged up against the law of reflection, this is why I always say I have such a love-hate relationship with it, because that law is a bitch, man.
It is.
It is.
I know. I don't want to know that about myself.
No, there's no way that's me. Oh, well, the more you respond, the more that's you. Oh, shut up.
That's exactly the conversation I had.
It's maybe a weekly occurrence in this brain.
Thanks, Patty, for saying that you were the weirdo feeling and everything, because I thought that was just me. I've never heard anyone else say that. That makes me feel, I like when I hear other people say things that I experience, because then I go, then I'm not the only person walking around on the planet feeling that way. It makes me feel more normal that, oh, there's somebody else out there. So this isn't, it's not so different. It's just another way of being, and somebody else is like that and stuff. And
I think it's actually more normal nowadays to be weird, or what other people perceive as weird. There's more of us.
Yeah, certainly letting our freak flags fly.
We're just coming out.
Yeah.
More, and but and Nancy, I know it was for many years. It was so. I struggled so much in my life because I wasn't being me. I wasn't being authentic. I wasn't accepting the things that I was feeling and thinking because I was afraid that I'd be judged by those around me.
Bingo. I just did something the last week. I sent an email to all my cousins telling them how much I loved them, to my aunt and everything. And I told them the truth about my spiritual beliefs. And I said, I don't believe I'm going to be saved by a patriarchal God anymore, and I believe this, and I believe, and I listed all the truths of my spiritual beliefs now. And then I said at the end, well, I hope you guys will still speak to me, and everything, because I wasn't sure what was going to happen, because
Right.
something could have, gone horribly wrong and stuff. And I was amazed at the positive reaction I got back, and the love and support, and them saying, wow, thanks for being honest. Thanks for saying what you really think. I really appreciated it. Yeah, that's how I look at it, more than, how we were raised and all that stuff. So I took a big risk, but I thought, well, if I'm going to die anyway, like what if, what's the risk? And I took it, and I've never done that before in my life, where I've laid on exactly what I thought. And I didn't do it I just, I did it very simply, and I wasn't telling anybody what to believe. But I got to tell you, I am stunned. I don't take risks like that. I took it. It worked beautifully.
And look, like what you found out, like you have more in common in your belief system than you thought, with at least one of your cousins who wrote back saying that that's more in line with what I believe too.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're all younger than me, like younger significantly. So that was quite an eye opener for me.
Yeah. Like when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable like that, when we take the risks that maybe expose us, we wind up forging connection. It's really the most powerful thing to just be who you are, to be authentically you. It's my jam, yo.
Sorry?
I said, it's my jam, yo.
Yeah, well, Patty's saying, about being, that's how I felt. Well, they're going to think I'm weird. And then I went, it doesn't matter, because I could be dead this week in my operation. So, like it's kind of funny. Your courage goes up when it's funny it's just funny what raises your courage in life. That's all. It's just, then you suddenly go, hey, I haven't got time to waste. I got to get to the point,
Right.
cut to the chase. I'm going to be polite, but I can't be, pandering to what everybody believes. I'm just going to be me. They either take it or they don't. And it's not even, I didn't even mean it sarcastically. I just wanted to just give myself permission to be the honest me and present as I really am. And
That's
it was
a beautiful
accepted.
thing that you gave yourself.
Yeah, and it just to be, that, and it's another reality, because what did Mike say? There's billions or millions of realities for us. He said at the beginning.
So the sentence.
Yeah, we're
Go ahead, Mike.
I would say we're constantly like flickering in and out of like different realities, and our consciousness basically settles in one. I like what you said too, Nancy. Like when you're faced with, death, you actually start contemplating, like, am I really living my life? Am I really living my authentic life? And what are we afraid of? And if we understand that the consciousness goes on, we came here to play our unique role. And if we're not playing it, then we're going to be, I guess, obsolete. Maybe the consciousness would get rid of us. If everybody was exactly the same, we would not be needed, right? So yeah, we're all supposed to be unique, and I think facing death is one of those things that can push you either way. It can scare some people the other way, and I think it can wake some people up as well.
And that's exactly what it took for me, was to get sick. Like
Right.
That I kind of, that's what was a wake up call for me, to say, hey, you're not living the way you're supposed to live. And it's time for you to change. And this is the time. And so, it's unfortunate sometimes that it takes something drastic to do that, but it happens the way it's meant to happen. So I just went with the flow, and everything changed. So
well, I think
it's all good.
To that as like the healing crisis, right? That moves us forward.
Yeah.
It can happen in sort of a therapeutic, holistic setting, and it can happen in a medical setting as well. And it's what moves us forward ultimately. We don't have to get to the crisis point, but often while we were still in our non-awakened state, it had to come to a significant point like that before we would take the leap. What were you going to say, Nancy?
that it comes down to, do you know what the realization was this week? Gee, I don't get to live forever, which has been a struggle for me anyway, but I went, you're not going to be here forever. And I'll tell you something. You assume, when you're young, you have that cockiness of you'll live forever. And then you start getting older and older and things start happening and you go, wait a minute, there is a time limit. There is a time limit. And then you go, wait a cotton picking minute. With the time I have left, no matter whether it's long or short, what are you going to do with it? Like, right. And you start paring away. I'm not wasting any more time on this or this or this. This is a priority. I want more of this in my life. And it's just one of those things that it's one of those things you can see it in movies, you can read it in books, you can hear about it even from friends, but till you live it yourself, it's one of those experiences that, like Patty said, you go through something that wakes you up. And if it's a health issue, it can be a spiritual issue. I've had that as well. But it's interesting when it's a health issue because it's a little more material as opposed to when it's dark night of the soul stuff. That's
you're talking about mental health, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, versus it's a different thing. But anyway, it's all fascinating.
Yeah. So the sentence that all of this beautiful conversation has flowed from read, you understand that there are multiple realities and you're more at peace with being misunderstood. Is there anything else we want to say about this?
Misunderstood means you might be being true to yourself.
What do you mean?
Well, people might misunderstand you, but if you're living your authentic life and you're doing your own weirdness and you're uniquely you, you're probably pretty happy. And, right. So you don't, I've come to realize we really don't need the approval of others, but that's, if you've been raised to just seek the approval of others, that's a hard thing to let go of. And I think most of us have been trained to seek the approval of others. And I think learning to be our authentic, unique self is the best gift we could give ourselves. And I've just 100%. Really come to comprehend that.
And I think we're able to make peace with being misunderstood because we understand that they are viewing us through their life. They're in their reality, not in our reality. I've shared with you guys many times that for a long time, my sister and I had stridently different memories of what our childhood upbringing was like. And, we have the same biological parents. We lived in the same house. We slept in the same bed. We had everything, the same. The only difference was that she was she and I was I. And we had stridently different childhoods if you talked to each of us about it. And one day I had that aha moment. I remember I was having sushi with a friend and it suddenly hit me like a truck. Oh my God, like that's her truth. It's not that she's in denial or lying. That's her reality. And whether it was her reality because she was blocking stuff out or not is irrelevant. It's her reality. And once I was able to make peace with that, it didn't matter anymore that she thought I was crazy or that she thought I was making stuff up, because I knew in my heart that I knew what was true for me.
I was going to say, we all end up blocking a lot of things out that happened in childhood, and it may have been traumatic or some reason we're blocking them out, but we all have created our own meaning of what things mean. Like we're kind of told, what things mean a little bit, but it's such an individual thing as well. We've all had very unique experiences to create what things mean in our lives.
Yeah, totally.
And we have free will to change it too. That's the other thing, is we can go back.
Beautiful gift.
And revisit some things that were suppressed or blocked or traumatic, and then we can put a different meaning on them now, and it can change the past.
Yeah. Oh, that free will.
Wow, Mike, go back and change the way you view something.
Right.
Wow. I got to ponder that. That's a good one.
Well, and that's happened to my sister, right? As she got deeper into her own healing, now she remembers our childhood a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And
That's great.
it's kind of, I don't know if everybody's familiar with radical forgiveness or even Course in Miracle forgiveness, but it's like you can go back and relook at things and realize that it created, everything happened perfectly to create who you are now. And when you really love that, you can put a different meaning on, the traumas, and you can actually start loving, maybe the people that perpetrated you or whatever, right? Whatever sort of meaning you want to put on it. But it actually is a really healing process to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Wow. That's, I'll have to ponder that. That's fascinating new info to me.
Well, I'll make sure to get this recording up to you so that you can watch it again.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready to move on to point number 4 on this list? Okay, so point number 4 says, you're drawn to learning new things, crave deeper connection and internal peace. I feel like that's the happy place to get to.
Yeah, it's like you can't learn enough. There's always something new out there, and whatever it is. So it, for me, it started with the Reiki, but like it just that education and training, and then there's always more to learn. You can't stop, I don't think, ever. And it feels so good.
Yes. And I think it was when I came to this point in my own authentic awakening that I really sunk into the belief I hold that there are no absolutes, because I only know what I know right now until I know something else.
And what I find out is the more I know, the more that I don't know. Like there's just so much more that I know. But at least I know that I don't know it now.
I agree, Mike, because the last week I went through and pulled out all these spiritual papers that I've been for 10 years taking notes, writing stuff down. And I went through and put a whole bunch in recycling because I've taken this in. I now do this. I now think this way. I don't have to keep this anymore. And I winnowed it down, and I went, oh, time for kind of a new batch of the next level up of whatever spiritual. And there's so much, like Mike said, you think, because I remember years ago thinking, if I learn this, I won't need to learn anything else. And then I learned that, and then I went, oh, well, that leads to this. And then you learn that. And the thing is, that's my passion in this life, actually. I love learning new spiritual stuff. That excites me. I find that to be a wonderful adventure, and exciting and dynamic and vibrant and full of life. So it's interesting that I thought it was all static, black and white, 1, 2, 3, 4, my checklist. And I'm realizing the checklist has to go, girl. It's like you go with the flow, and you see what the universe brings you. And when you expand and broaden your perspective, different stuff will come to you.
True.
And stuff. So it's fascinating.
It's true. The next part in the sentence says we crave deeper connection.
Mm-hmm.
I found that this kind of shows up a little bit in what our limited egoic brain might view as a negative. When we talk about in the awakening that the friends who used to mean everything to you, you kind of no longer fit with them. And I think this occurs because we come to this place of wanting deeper connection. We can't just talk about the latest fashions or the new recipe that we read online or the sports scores or what the guys are doing on the weekend. We want to talk about, what was that word that we was it quorum or something? No, not quorum. Quantum. No, that you were talking
Qualia.
about, Mike, with the qualia. So we want to sit around and talk about qualia and nanophysics, right? And how quarks just appear, nobody can actually connect them. While your old group of people who maybe were your knitting circle are just okay, but can we just knit one and purl two, please? It doesn't matter that the sheep's wool actually absorbs carbon monoxide and wool is actually saving the planet. I just want to knit.
Yeah, they're going to want to know what you're.
What I was going to say is, you realize how perfect all these connections are. We're we're spinning on a planet, chasing the sun, just the perfect distance away with the right amount of, solar energy to create life. It's like, this is so interconnected. It's so perfect. It's like it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
And then realize we're all connected in that way too. It wouldn't work without any one of us.
Yeah.
And then we seem to attract, we actually start to attract those people that we want to have connections with. And like you said, Michelle, you kind of, those old friends, they're still friends, you still love them, but it's not as, and it's not as fulfilling to spend time with them as it once was, because their interests are very different.
Right.
So it's hard to spend a lot of time with a person that you have no real mutual.
I think a lot of us get stuck in this place though, because we don't give ourselves permission to release what we have, outgrown, or release what no longer is healthy for us. Because a lot of those relationships, certainly in my own personal experience, they try to force you back into the spot that they're comfortable with you being. And this is where the first point in this list is so critical, that we have boundaries, where we're saying, actually, that's, if that's how you want to interrelate with one another, I don't think I can engage with that anymore. And we're not really trained to give ourselves permission to do that, especially with the bigger relationships. Like when I had to be okay with not having my father in my life, when I had to become okay with being estranged because we just were not going to come to terms on a pivotal topic in our lives. I had to give myself permission for it to be okay. And let me tell you, as somebody who was raised as a Catholic, full of guilt and the requirement to be a good girl, because the original sin came through my body as woman, this was a massive undertaking. A massive undertaking to disrespect my father, to disagree with him to this point where he was no longer welcome in my life. And some people really get stuck here. And this is where, if your inspiration to becoming more authentic was a physical challenge, like you were expressing with your surgery this week, Nancy, as opposed to a mental health, or I think the word you used earlier was a spiritual challenge, you can be stuck here for a long time. We'll see a manifestation of depression and manifestation of anxiety, because you don't feel free to exercise your free will and set that boundary and know that it's okay for you to do what you need outside of society's wants and whims.
Yeah, and also if you were raised that, you valued your friends, because I was thinking of this dear group of 3 other girls I was in from like the first one who was in grade 4, etc., and everything, when she came from Poland, and I was one of the girls that got to show her around the school. And I was thinking about those dear friends of mine and how I miss that they're not in my life anymore. But I realized my life took a different journey than theirs, and I had to also forgive myself that my life didn't follow the norm, because I didn't come from a normal childhood. And therefore, it's okay. And I still love them and think of them with love. And I do miss them in one way.
Sure.
But, it's like I'm not a terrible person, because friendships that I thought I would have throughout my whole life through circumstance, ended. It's just we grow and we change and we expand. And I think a lot of what we are raised to do, we're raised to believe we need to judge ourselves in areas of our life that people didn't really give us the truth of. This is a situation of your life. Your work career could change, your relationships could change, your friendships could change, and you will change. Like, I think it would be if I had children or grandchildren, I want to teach them that, what life is about? Life is about change all the time.
Yeah.
Life is about change. That would have been a valuable lesson, I think, as a child to get. But anyway, I'm going down the rabbit hole.
I would agree.
And anything that changes is not real. So I just thought I'd add that in there. We've gone over that a few times, but
Bingo.
So we do take this life very seriously, and it's constantly changing. And then what we realize is that stable thing is what's true. We're here to play out this human experience, and we might as well be as authentic as we can be. Try to be really true to who you are. And I think that's what these points are about.
Yeah.
I think that's what this time period's about in history on the planet right now. People learning to be true to themselves and finding out who they really are, because there's no masks to hide behind anymore.
Yes. That is the ascension in a nutshell. I find it interesting that they threw inner peace in at the end of this sentence, because, you know, we're talking about, we're drawn to learning new things. Well, and all these people around us might be upset because now we're doing something different, and we want deeper connection. And so now we can't interrelate with them. And, you know, we're probably feeling a lot of turmoil in our lives, that everything is changing and everything is shifting, and I don't know who I am anymore. And maybe we find that exciting, but for the large majority, certainly in my client base, they do not find this exciting, right? They find it like the world is ending. How do you get from the world is ending to inner peace at the end of this sentence?
You want to know how? You got to go in. It's not about ascension, it's about ascension.
It's inner peace.
Inner work. Do the inner work.
Mean.
It's not ascension, it's inscension, Nancy. That's what you want to see? Yes. Quote to Dr. Mike Koulis.
Something was blocking the mic thing. Because I think Mike's right. We're all looking for the answers outward, and the answers are inward. And until you turn inward, you will never find your happiness, because you're looking outward and you have no control over, not even that you control your inner you, but you need to shut up, which has been hard for me to do, and listen to my inner me. That's the key, to be quiet.
Even for you, Nancy, when you start, you know, we're kind of raised with, you know, maybe this patriotic God outside of us, and we're like looking for this God outside of us, but now you realize, oh, it's inside, or it's everywhere. It's like, I'm completely connected. There's this oneness and this compassion for it all.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's not an external saving by a patriarchal God, exactly. It's an internal job.
But what's funny about that is that I learned really early in my journey of Catholicism that, you know, Jesus is in your heart. He's everywhere that you are. God is with you all the time. So I feel like within the structure of that antiquated system, there really are invitations to go inward, only to, I suppose, I don't know how I want to say that. I was going to say to like only a certain extent, because I still want to control the thing. But yeah, I think there's my grandfather, whom I adored and was my best friend for a long time, did tell me that there were a lot of things in the Bible that proved so much of what Catholics preached as true was not true. And he was a devout Catholic, right? So he was aware of what time it was, but I guess wasn't alive in a time and space where he could do anything about it. And now here I am doing something about it. Maybe not. I don't know.
No, he's witnessing it. He's able to see you say and express what he probably couldn't during the time period he lived.
For sure. Yeah. All right, my friends. It is 10 after 11. Well, it's actually 11:11. We should make a wish. But there's only one more thing on this list. Should we push it? I know you got to go, Mike.
Yeah, let's hear it. I'm okay right now. All
right. It says, you understand that people project their unhealed trauma, and it's not personal. Mm-hmm. I feel like we could talk about this for 40 minutes next week.
We could. I feel that everybody is doing the best they can at their level of consciousness, and we did the same, you know, as we kind of evolved through this as well.
Yes, 100%. And I would say that this statement, you understand that people project their unhealed trauma, is very much linked to point number 3. You understand there are multiple realities, and you're at peace with being misunderstood. And you can only get there because you know that people are not responding to you. They're not really engaging with you. They're engaging with their reflection of themselves.
So it's the 4 agreements. Don't take anything personally.
Right. Right. Because it's not about you.
Yeah. Hmm.
And that's all we're going to say about this?
No, that's that's an area of life I find challenging. And I'm working on it and trying not to, and I'm having moments, even with Philip, where I never thought that would happen, where he was getting upset with me or something, and then I thought, oh no, just listen to what he has to say and don't get upset. Hear what's underneath the upset, to
Right.
hear what he's trying to get across. And then when I do that, it works out like way better, because I haven't taken it personally, and I'd realized that he's upset about something, and instead of getting caught up in the feeling like I was attacked and then defending and back and forth, if I'm calm and mature and just listen factually, then it works out much better, and I can listen better, because it's not my ego getting attacked that's listening, it's the mature factual part of me. And yeah, I'm not, this is an interesting topic for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is challenging, I think, for a lot of people. And I think it's because we're human.
Yeah.
We no matter how evolved we are,
Yeah.
That human side, that ego, I guess, comes out, and it takes, sometimes you have to step back, and because your initial response may be one of feeling like you're being attacked, or you get your hurt feelings and you're taking it personally. But when you're able to step back and just look at it rationally and sort of remember that this isn't personal.
Yeah.
But for anybody who doesn't understand that, it's a struggle.
Yes.
And there are still times when I take something personally, until I kind of take a breath and take a moment
and I ask myself
realize.
that question when I wind up triggered: what am I reacting to here? What is the story this is confirming within me? And I follow those feelings to the healing of my own trauma that I'm projecting onto the situation, because that's what I'm responding to, the projection of my trauma. Do you understand what I mean?
And also you start to
Because I can give you an example. So recently I was messaging with some friends, and I met one of these friends in a mom and me group when my middle child was 2. And then I introduced that friend to my other friend. So now the 3 of us have like this great deep friendship, and we spend a lot of time together. But the 2 of them started messaging each other privately. Now this has been years that we have all been 3 friends, and they planned something without me knowing about it. And I was so triggered to be left out of the group that I started. Now, of course, I don't own these people, and I don't own their relationship. And everybody has individual relationships with everybody who they meet. I don't need to be in the middle of all of it. I know all this logically and rationally, but my human self was triggered. And so as I followed this trigger, like, what was this experience telling me? And I followed it a long way down, because in that same week, I had a few other blips, and I wound up finding the connective tissue was that there was a story running deep in my unconscious that said I was unwanted. And so I was able to begin working on me believing that I am unwanted. And it healed so much of me, so much so that my right shoulder finally dropped for the first time in its life. And it was really astounding. But that's what I mean when I say that I'm projecting my own trauma onto the trigger. That I was triggered by believing they didn't want me, which I didn't know in that moment. But hey, you don't have a right to have a friendship without me. We're friends together, damn it. And then following that down through my own trauma to the point of pain.
And that's great that you understood that these things can get into our physical body and affect us physically, especially if we don't, address them and release them. That often people are, having physical problems. So it could be cancer, it could be your right shoulder, it could be heart disease, or it could be
Anything.
whatever, back pain. But that is the densities that are getting blocked in our physical body that need to be released. And it's challenging work, just doing this human stuff, whether it's, what we do with chiropractic or acupuncture or energy healing or talk therapy or beam therapy or, even just the work we're doing here, just waking up is awesome work for.
I wanted to bring it back to the personal because this list keeps talking about external, right? And we've spent time saying that it's internal stuff. So here, really, if we were going to switch it, it would say you understand that people project, so that you understand that you project your unhealed trauma and that it's not personal to them. Maybe. You got to bring it in.
It goes both ways.
It totally does,
It does.
Like, I mean, we now, as people who understand this idea, I think we can recognize it easier in other people when they have that response to something that's happened that, they're triggered by something. It's probably easier to recognize it in others than it is to recognize it in ourselves.
Well, because we're not the problem.
No.
I am perfect. Like, hello, I'm Reverend Michelle.
But it's kind of like,
I think what happened.
Go ahead, Patty.
Sorry, I was just going to say the good thing though is that when we do recognize it, understand it in other people, then our response to their response can be better.
Yes.
Because it can get into a very confrontational situation.
Well, and I did actually go back to that friend group and say, you guys, you're not going to believe what just happened in my head. And I told them how triggered I was by realizing I didn't know everything, and that they could probably tell because my responses were a little bit colder than normal. And then when I dug all through the layers, I just realized that I just feel so unwanted. And then I talked about all the different triggers that I had that week that led me down that garden path to that little secret. Because for me, of course, as someone who does this for a living and who really feels like teacher is my role, I want to share the experience so that if there's anything you can glean from what I've said here, you can internalize that potentially in your own healing. And one of the friends actually said, oh my God, Michelle, I could have written this. Yeah, because it's common. We all feel it, right?
It is common. I've experienced that myself, and not the past.
Right, like
in the present.
Yeah.
And
in
Michelle,
the present. Your next book. Next book.
What are you saying, Nancy?
That when you were talking about that situation, I went, well, I would be upset in that situation. Like, I got offended for you because I thought, well, if I was in that situation, I'd go, well, why aren't I good enough? How come I'm not wanted? So I had a reaction exactly the same as yours to your situation. My heart was feeling compassion for you because I went, yeah, I get Michelle's side. I would feel that way. So I think that's maybe, and Patty. So I guess this is a normal human response.
We feel left out all the time because most of us are running some version of not wanted, unworthy, not good enough, right?
They were probably planning a surprise party for you, Michelle. They didn't want you to know.
Well, think about kids and their mothers. How come you gave him the bigger piece of cake, Mom? It's like even it just happens everywhere, probably all the time.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. Well, as expected, this discussion did not disappoint. This was wonderful. I will post the list now so you can see it all at the same time. I will cease controlling your reading ahead. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and mute you all so that we can go to our affirmation of hope. And then we'll come back for much more love next week. All right. Share our affirmation of hope. Hope, fragile, luminous, and buoyant. Fill me now. Bring your gifts of optimism, faith, and positivity. Grow strong within me today and every day. Increase my connection with those around me. Balance my moods with a lightness of being and touch all those I meet with blessings. Hope, fragile, luminous, and buoyant, fill me now. Humble and expand my heart with openness, making me compassionate, relaxed, and kind, aware of the many blessings I have each day, making of me a better, more human person. Hope is a gift that passes through me to others, and so it is. Thanks everybody again for being here. I love starting my week this way, especially with all of you.